All right, Michael, we are live on YouTube. Whenever you want to begin.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Welcome to February 21st Full Design Review Board meeting. I will call us to order and establish a quorum, which we do. I believe we have 6 members. So we have quorum, and I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Motion passes. Staff, are we approving some meeting minutes, I'm assuming?
Yes, we have January 17th, January 24th, February 7th, and February 14th.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve January 17th, January 24th, February 7th, and February 14th meeting minutes?
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. All right. Now I'm looking for any general member comments. These would be not in any reference to any application tonight, just in general. Any general member comments? I do not see any. All right. We will then get started into our agenda. We have a little bit of a long agenda tonight, so bear with us as we get through it, but hopefully we'll be able to get everybody helped. So first item agenda is for discussion and kind of informational session with Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. Is a representative from the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board on?
Yes, we have Christopher Daniel and Denise is unmuted. Christopher, Daniel, and Denise.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
Welcome
It's Elena Garrison.
What? Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know.
Wow.
I'm stalking you. I'm on the DRB.
And I'm the chairman of the Architectural Review Board.
There we go.
Well, clearly some of you guys know each other. I'm Michael Wood. I am the DRB chair here for Reston Association. We have on our, just so you guys know, our kind of board members here are, we have Sarah, we have Elena, who you guys seem to know, we have Brian, we have John and Bruce, and I think I heard Mike B, but I don't see his, there he is, Mike. And
Yep.
Mike is also on as well. So we have 7 of our members, and 7 of 8 at the moment. I think we're trying to fill up.
Can we check to make sure that Jim is here? I'm going to ask Jim to unmute and identify himself. I'm sorry.
I'm here.
There he
Awesome.
is. And Jim is also on as well. So we actually have our full board here today. So yeah, Chris, if you want to take it away and kind of walk through what you guys wanted to talk with us about and walk us through.
Sure. Absolutely. And I apologize for my delayed arrival. You'd think I use Zoom all the time for my professional job. It would work fine on my personal computer, but it seems to want to fight me. So good evening, everybody. I'm Christopher Daniel. I'm the chairman of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. And as mentioned, I am accompanied by the branch chief of the Heritage Resources Program. Branch chief or section chief, Denise?
Branch
chief.
Yes.
Denise Dressel, who is also serves in another hat as the ARB administrator until we can fill the vacancy that she is serving 2 hats for. That seems to be the common game we have at the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Zoning. But So in earlier conversations, I think part of the goal of this was for a little bit of meet and greet and hello between you all, because obviously while the Reston Association DRB does have a lot of purview over things around the area where I live, because I'm from Reston, we only really intersect with each other at Lake Ann, which is designated a historic overlay district. Which is a special designation through the county and is affected by the zoning ordinance. And as part of that, the Lake Ann Historic Overlay District, which is pulled up on the map, requires that applications for building permit, as well as applications for rezoning have to come to us at the Architecture Review Board. And so there was a nexus point where y'all provide input and where me and my members provide input. And it seemed, particularly after talking with Cam, it seemed really would be beneficial if we had a chance to, I guess, talk about what we both do. And you all could ask some questions, particularly about what the Architecture Review Board does and how we might have some ways of, I guess, synthesizing or coordinating our review processes, I guess would be the best way to describe it, so that we're both thinking and looking forward for the property that I think we all both value that really defines Reston. I think it is a quintessential centerpiece for Reston. And while y'all's focus on design reviews is different from ours, I think there's a lot of overlap. So that's my it's my opening salvo. I could go into a lot more, but I wasn't quite sure what you all wanted me to first start on. I got lots of points, but no presentation. So I didn't know if there were any particular questions you all might have.
I think it's obviously it's a unique situation, and even I don't know fully what the process looks like, but I know with the Village Center specifically, there's obviously there's going to be redevelopment that's happening with it. There's obviously new tenants moving in all the time. I believe, there's a historic, there's obviously the historic designation, but there's also kind of I know there was the whole planned, I guess, what would you call it? Upkeep study, or I forget what they
Revitalization study.
Revitalization study, right? So there's going to be work coming down the pipeline. So I think it's good to know that we would be, I think it's best to just let people know who live there, and also people who want to open businesses there to kind of know what to expect, because it may seem daunting to have to go through multiple levels of review. And I think ultimately I think Cam probably wanted us to get together so we could kind of talk through that process and just make sure that we're, process looks like, and making sure that nothing kind of skips a beat, essentially, and people can still open businesses and go from there. So
absolutely. And I think so. The Architecture Review Board has been the ARB has been particularly vocal recently involving Lake Ann because of the potentiality for redevelopment that could happen there. We were involved several years ago now for proposed redevelopment of the Crescent that might have basically connected Lake Ann with this new potential development, and the proposed developer for that spent multiple sessions with the ARB working through plans and designs. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition, but I think the interesting thing is how one of us can inform the other sometimes, because obviously the Architecture Review Board, our review is only triggered when there is obviously a building permit. That is the impetus. So when an applicant submits their stuff into the county's new PLUS system, which is a digital submission system, that's when Denise, our administrator, gets the information to know that an applicant is seeking the ARB's approval. And if the system works the way it's supposed to, that building permit cannot be approved until they have our stamp on it as well. Obviously, the county's transition to a new system is having some hiccups. We're obviously, thankfully, because we have Denise watching things, we're able to stop things or catch things that do rise to the level of a building permit. But that is I think the real demarcation line, that if it doesn't require a building permit and doesn't require rezoning, then the architecture board at the county level may not actually have any oversight over something occurring here. And I know there's a level of difference sometimes that happens with the Reston Association DRB, and that's obviously that is definitely I won't say a gray area, but a gap that obviously, as much as we can work with CAM to try to identify where that space is, so that we can obviously each inform each other when there's something that may go to the other that the other might never see. Because obviously we've provided recommendations on projects before in the past that applicants have come to us, even properties outside of overlay districts. But, you know, unless it's something that we have to approve, then ultimately it's just a courtesy opinion. I will say some real interesting things that with us being very active in this, just in Reston in general, we've been pushing for more surveys in Reston just to identify the plethora of historic properties that we believe exist here, because the only way a property gets consideration by the county is if it's listed as a heritage resource. And without that listing, the county's planning process doesn't even really tick a bell to say, hey, we need to at least think about what we could do here. An example would be the Association Drive collection of buildings there. Obviously, they were not really considered historic properties or heritage resources at the time until a designation had been made, and then a process was gone through to consider the effects to those properties. While Lake Ann is fairly locked in place, I would say many of the clusters and communities surrounding it are now being identified as also being potentially heritage resources in their own right, and starting to grow into properties that in the future we may be talking about having consideration for. So the ARB is already feeling like, wow, there's lots of potential for us to provide opinions and obviously observations, but you know, we have to try to be as good as we can in the places we already have oversight. And that's where Lake Ann recently, I participated in the comp plan update that Supervisor Alcorn was conducting. We have 2 members participating in the revitalization study just to make sure that we have our expertise involved. And for background, the ARB has a variety of professions. We have 4 architects at this current point. I'm an architectural historian by trade. We have a lawyer, we have a landscape architect, as well as an ex officio member from the History Commission. So we try to bring the entire gamut of professions to any of the reviews. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, so if I am, I apologize.
No, I think it's helpful to get your background, and I think what's, you know, there's always this tricky point of where the county has purview over what, you know, us as the design review board. You know, we don't necessarily require there to be a building permit for when we have purview. So you know, let's say there's a storefront modification, or you know, something like a roof, or you know, some sort of parapet capping, something that obviously you wouldn't get triggered for, but we would, right? So we definitely have overlap in it. If historic districts keep expanding in Reston, specifically on some of the marquee kind of clusters that I know have been designated for historic consideration, you know, we might be intersecting a lot more often. Now on residential projects, I would say, you know, a lot of those things, I feel like if someone's doing some updates to the home on the outside, they really require a permit. So I would probably say we wouldn't intersect that much. It would mainly, we would still have the main purview kind of over the clusters that would be designated that. But I think it's good for us in front of it. I think Lake Ann is a prime example of that situation. I mean, want me to go around my board and see if anyone has any questions for you guys? Do you guys have any other kind of comments you want to make?
Nothing for me, Michael.
Does anybody else on the board, does anyone have any questions for Chris and his team?
Nothing for me.
Okay.
I do have an interesting observation that I think is a opportunity for us to inform each other. At least it's a selfish one to inform the ARB. So the ARB, so we have 2 ways of reviewing things that come in. Obviously, applicants can come in for what are called workshop sessions, which are more free-form discussions. You all, I think, do something very similar in the sense that folks can, you know, kind of talk about their design, but even though they're seeking approval in some cases, it's a more informal approach. And now that we've recently adopted a district that has a lot of homes, private residences that folks want to do updates to, we've been seeing more of those. And so those are more, we work with the applicant. However, when we take something up for application, there's a very formal process in our bylaws in which I this is my final term as being chairman, so someone else is going to have to administrate these meetings. Good luck to them. We have to walk through. Obviously, one is always we want to make sure if there's any member of the public that has a comment on something. But another item that is only used, and I would say sparingly, is obviously other organizations, entities, bodies, and local authorities can provide their comments or opinions, whether in writing or in person, on applications being considered in that historic overlay district. So, for example, Laurel Hill, the Lorton Workhouse area actually has several groups that are interested in what goes on down there. And they frequently in the past have sent a member to our ARB meetings to opine. And in addition, Holland Hills, one of our newest historic overlay districts, has its own design review board done by its own HOA. And there, I believe she's the president of the design review board, Denise. I don't know if that's the exact title. She attends all our ARB member meetings when her community has applications. I would love for there to be an opportunity to always be able to have information shared by the Rest Association DRB for when we have an application at Lake Ann. Because what I do is we obviously go let the applicant present, I ask for public comments, and then at the next step, I allow folks to then say, are there any other comments from organizations, entities, and I would share those letters or those views. And so were there an application going on at Lake Ann that the DRB had strong opinions about, whether for or against, that would be a great way for those opinions to be shared, whether it was conveyed by staff to me so that I could share it during the meeting, or if there was a representative that wanted to attend and say, hey, I'm speaking on behalf of the DRB, this is what we said, we're in support of this application, or we're against this application. It really helps the Architecture Review Board make a decision, because while you have 2 members of our board right now that live in Reston, we can't be everywhere all at once. And we obviously also are unable to attend every meeting all at once. So we sometimes are unaware of certain things. Like I think about storefront projects. I remember a few years back how frustrated I got with an applicant in Lake Ann who wanted to replace his wood storefront to match the existing metal of all the other ones, because then they would be more consistent. And I said, well, the wood is the original material. And as an architectural historian, you're tearing my heart out to tell me that you want to rip out all the historic fabric and replace it so that you look similar to the rest of the stuff that ripped out the historic fabric. That's not like, we had a very strong opinion about that. Now, that being said, it was well designed. So there may be a place where, yes, this is consistent, but from a preservation perspective, our board may have a more judicious look due to our guidelines on those things. So that's one area where obviously we could definitely feel informed by y'all and allow the DRB to have a voice in our meetings.
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. I think I would have to run it by legal, to be honest with you, because one member does not speak for the full board. And so that's where I don't want, unless we've already weighed in on the subject. So let's say it was an application that we had already seen and we had already voted on, then we could speak in for or against the application, depending on what our final, our final decision was as a board. But if it was an application that we had not heard yet from the board perspective, I would say that we would, I'm sure Tony, our legal who's on tonight, would say, one person cannot give an opinion for the entire board if we have not weighed on it all together. So having a liaison there to just kind of hear your guys' side of it, I think would be helpful. I know recently there's a commercial tent with a, kind of exhaust chimney situation that's been going on. I don't know what process they came to you guys or if they came to us first. They're also dealing with their own condo association that has an architectural review board. So I don't know at what stand, at what point they came to you guys in it. But that's kind of a situation that we've weighed in on it after other people have weighed in on it. We deferred it, I think, the last time. There's been all these different things. It would be good to definitely be able to track applications that are in here and kind of run them through. To me, they should go through almost the condo process first with the condo association, and then go through Reston Design Review Board, and then come to the county. And both of us could give our official recommendations on the projects to you all before you guys then review them as a part of the building permit process. That's how I would view it. I think would be the best way. But I don't know, which one that path took. But anyways, that I do think it is a good idea to get us involved, especially when there obviously are applications in Lake Ann.
And Arisa, you want to drop LARCA from it too. It's ARB. Sorry. I just, since you recorded this, I want to make it clear that while in my day job, I work for the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, I am in no way representing them in any capacity during any of these meetings or when I serve as the chairman of the Architecture Review Board. And the reason I say that is literally for my day job, I do historic preservation work. That's how I know Elena. We intersect through our professional side of careers. But yeah, I think that is the challenge. I would encourage, obviously, that was the other thing. We obviously wanted to make sure our legal always make sure we're providing the right kind of viewpoints when we can. I think obviously if there is something that is approved by the DRB and it's going to be in the historic overlay district, if you want staff to convey that approval to us, that would be fantastic to know. Because I will say Denise doesn't always have that answer when I put her on the spot. I have sometimes asked Denise, do we know if this has gone through the design review board at several of our locations? And if she has it in her file, she can definitely say yes. But because obviously you all aren't a county board and we aren't a local board, there's not that, there's not that pipeline that connects those two unless we decide that that's something we want to share. And so it might be something to think about. Do you want to convey approvals or denials to the ARB if the board feels so passionate? Because then if we have that at our meeting, we can know that for our record. Obviously, same with the Holland Hills, our newest district, we sometimes take that under advisement and don't always agree with them either. It's not to say it isn't helpful information, because I would love to find that way so that we could say we're feeling informed and we're not serving cross purposes, I guess that's what I'm focusing on.
Yep, no, I agree. I think we can keep the discussion going, and we'll go from there. I don't want to cut you short, but I do want to get moving on to our agenda, just because we do have a long agenda tonight. But I think we'll definitely keep in touch through Cam and his staff, and I do agree that any application that we come through, I think what would be great is if once again it goes through LARCA first, then DRB, then comes to the ARB for you guys. I think would be, and then we can provide our recommendation or in support or against it, and the reasons why, so you guys have some informed local knowledge of why we're against it or for it. So.
Absolutely. And I let me convey that obviously in the future, the ARB is trying to have our meetings at more local locations, not just the government center. So perhaps in the future, we can consider a time where the DRB and the ARB can have some kind of less formal meet and greet where we can talk about Lake Ann in particular, because I think we both have a lot of shared interest in making that site and that district as best as it can be for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Chris. All right. We will move on to our agenda item G, which is Mallard's Landing Cluster. It looks like this is an appeal. So the appellant, Don Isco.
Yes, I'm
you
here.
on? Hello, sir. So the way an appeal works, and it looks like you filled out all the boxes correctly. So I think you may know.
I don't think I did, because there's a second page to what you've got up there on the screen, but I did my best.
So all you have to do for right now
okay.
is all you need to do right now is to approve whether there was a misapplied guideline or cluster standard, or there's new information of why you're appealing the decision. And then if that in fact is, provided, we'll vote on it. And then we will, if it is passed, then we will review the application de novo, which basically means we'll kind of start anew with the application. So before you get started, let me just staff, who was on the original panel for this decision?
No, can you hear me? Okay. So the original panel was Bruce, Sarah, and Jim.
I also must recuse myself.
Okay.
That.
All right. Okay. Well, that still leaves 4 of us to be able to make a decision, so we are okay. So just a reminder, Sarah, Bruce, and Jim just cannot vote on the appeal because they were part of the original decision. If we obviously accept the appeal, then you guys can participate in the new discussion. So.
And you counted me as being recused, right, Mike?
Yes. Yep. And so there's still Brian, John, Mike, and myself who can vote. So. All right. So.
Is it my turn?
Don, yep. Go ahead and take it away,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, thank you, and I'll try to be brief. Last time I didn't know how little I could say in 3 minutes.
Well, here
I'm appealing-
you can do as long as you want. So.
Okay, I'll be under 3 minutes. And I hope I can get some discussion this time. There was none
Yep.
last time. I'm appealing the proposed stepping stone pathway adjacent to 5 residents' backyard on the basis of misapplied guidelines. At its initial August 2nd, 2022 hearing, the DRB required the applicants to work with adjacent property owners to determine the solution that reduced the impact on them. However, the applicants did not solicit any input from some or all of the affected parties. I unsuccessfully reached out to one board member asking him to come over and show me where he thought the path would be, and I got no reply. The above information, that is the exact location of the path, is critical to the decision. The revised plat from the applicants does not provide sufficient detail to determine if the stepping stone path would interfere with the pre-existing 6-inch stone wall, trees, and landscaping, which are behind 11123 and 11125 Waterman's Drive. This wall is mainly on cluster property with a small section on 1123 Waterman's Drive, and it was installed more than 10 years ago before we purchased our home. And there's a number of trees and plantings also on that same area that were pre-existing. At the last meeting, it was incorrectly stated that the new path would replace a pre-existing path behind the 5 townhomes. There is no such path. In addition to the DRB mandated residence review, a professional survey would be needed to ensure that the pathway avoids pre-existing landscaping and trees. Any questions or discussions, please?
Nope, that's adequate. Just so question, did anyone, when you appealed the decision, did you have a chance to speak with anybody with the cluster at all?
Not when I appealed the decision, no. And then the finding of the DRB was that the applicant should work with the adjacent property owners. And to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't happened subsequent to that DRB meeting.
Okay, all right, that's all I was wondering. Okay, let me go around and see the room and see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we'll have some discussion, okay, about the appeal. All right.
Sure.
Brian, did you have any questions for Don?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. John, did you have any questions?
John's muted there.
He should be able to unmute himself. John, can you unmute yourself?
Yep.
There you go.
They had me. Yes, I'm unmuted now. So,
Do you have any questions for the appellant?
we may see this in a little bit, but I would like to see it just a plan of the pathway as it's planned to go, the planned location.
Yeah, that was submitted by the applicants. That's not from me.
Right.
Yeah. All we're trying to determine right now is whether there was a misapplied guideline or new information.
Oh, okay.
So right now, John, we won't look at that until we accept the appeal or deny
All right.
the appeal.
I was not involved in the initial decision, so my knowledge is limited.
Okay. Mike, do you have any questions for Don?
No, I don't have any questions for Don. Thank you, sir.
So Sarah, Bruce, and Jim, do you guys remember this this application, and do you guys, I guess in the application, in the decision, you guys put that it says approved walkway and cluster common ground location behind Waterman's indicated site plan has been to include the following. But your decision did not require any sort of discussion with abutting property owners. Is that correct?
If we're talking about the December 13th decision, that's not there, yeah.
That was a previous decision, Michael. So the application was reviewed previously, and the DRB required that the applicant work with the clusters in a previous decision, and then it was reviewed again at the December meeting in which the DRB made the decision that is currently under appeal.
Okay, and the appellant is saying though that because that original decision they never consulted with him per that original decision. Okay.
Can staff pull up the previous decision so that the DRB can see it on the screen? There was very specific language, and I want to make sure that we.
Yeah. So go to slide 10, Steph. Are you talking about the August 9th decision, Cam? Or are you talking about the December 12th? Okay. Yeah, so slide 10, Steph. So here on August 9th, we said deferred on cluster common area behind, in talking about this walkway to work with adjacent property owners to determine a location for the installation of the walkway that reduces the impact of the walkway on adjacent properties. So when you guys made your decision on December 12th, did you guys take that stipulation into account, and did the adjacent property owners, did you guys, I guess, make sure that the reason why it was deferred the first time, was that addressed kind of on the December 12th or December 13th meeting? Sorry. And this question is directed toward Bruce, Jim, or Sarah.
Well, I didn't see it as a condition. It says it would give them more time so they could allow them to review with the cluster. Oh.
Yeah, and I guess the appellant is arguing that never happened. So
I understand, but it wasn't a condition of it was a recommendation.
Were you guys the same board that reviewed the August 9th? Or the August 2nd, sorry. For that August 9th decision on the August 2nd, that would have been your guys' panel as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But my recollection is in December that we had input from the community in real time.
Yeah, and Bruce, that's my recollection as well. And it was my understanding that this pathway was going to be only located on common area of this cluster, and so it was up to the cluster's board and their internal organization to figure out where this pathway was going to go on common area only.
Which was the difference between the August application and the December application, right, Sarah? Was that it moved from being on people's properties to now cluster only.
That's correct, because when they were trying to have it on individuals' properties, they couldn't get a consensus. So the proposed pathway, or I should say the spaced paving stones, were only going to be within the common area. And it seemed that there was approval, or there was a consensus from the board for that cluster, that was something they were willing to do. And Bruce, I thought that we had made a recommendation that they look at the run and heights and at least meet the minimum 711 for those steps, so that they're not creating, you try to keep those steps as even as possible where the grade was changing. And also, it was my recollection from that December that they provided a photograph of existing pavers in the common area that denote a partial path that people have been using to access the water from that row of townhomes. So from what was presented to us, it seemed that there was already kind of this wayfinding path that was there. There was already some pavers there. They just wanted to make a single pathway with pavers on common area and not on anyone's property.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's what led into the decision, was basically they had removed it from the adjacent properties and it's all on cluster land. So, okay. I mean, I don't know how Brian, John, or Mike feel. I don't necessarily see any new information or any misapplied guideline from what the decision that was made, because even though they may have not gotten direct input, to me, they took away the concern of it being on anyone's property and it all being on cluster land. It'd be like if the cluster was putting in a drainage swale or something to that effect. The pavers are not that we're reviewing them right now, but they're I guess I won't say anything about the pavers because we're not reviewing that. We're just looking to see if there's any new information or misapplied guidelines. So
Michael, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we have anyone representing the board of that cluster here to speak and see if what type of collaboration or outreach that has been done to communicate this pathway to residents?
Yeah, it's a good
decision.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. Staff,
Anna Rosa says the president is here.
Okay. Could we talk to them real quick? Ask them a couple questions.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Tony Gillum. I'm president of Mallard's Landing Cluster Association.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right. So could you walk us through, so from August to December, did obviously the plan change to reroute the path to stay all on cluster property from what it looks like? Did you guys do any outreach to the property owners that are, most kind of impacted by this pathway, kind of how we had in our deferred, or?
Yes, we did. So just to give you some background, the whole reason that we're trying to create this pathway is because some of the neighbors that live in that section of the cluster have been blocking egress to other neighbors. They didn't want them walking through what they considered their yard. So that was denying them access to a path that had previously been there, but that we had kind of let it get overgrown because there were several different homeowners had put in their own gravel paths behind their homes, and the people were using that. And then when they started blocking off those paths, then it was up to us to reestablish the path that had previously been there. And we did talk with every affected party in that section of our cluster before we even decided to go forward with this. And at the last meeting, when the appellant said that we, could work it out on our own, the whole reason that we're doing this is because they could not work it out on their own. I mean, we don't want to have to do this, but we have to do this in the interest of the other families that live over there.
Okay, but that helps give us a little bit more background, and even though it's not part of this, I'm just curious. The path is completely on, or will be completely on, cluster owned property, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, I don't see any new information. I don't see a misapplied guideline. I think the panel made the right decision. I'm going to put a motion up and we can have some further discussion. I'm going to make a motion to deny the appeal.
I'll second, Michael. Assuming you were done with your motion. Apologies.
I was done. Yep. Motion and a second. So just further discussion. Brian, John, Mike, I mean, do you guys have any other thoughts on this?
I don't, Michael. I think I agree with your line of reasoning. So I was going to make the motion if you didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
agree. Also, I'm not sure if I'm seeing the simplified guideline anywhere.
Okay.
I'm in agreement as well, so.
Okay, and just so we will take a vote. Just as a reminder, Sarah, Bruce, Jim, you all are not voting because you're part of the decision, and Elena has recused herself because I believe she lives in this cluster. So all those in favor of the denial of the appeal, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? And then the abstentions, like I had listed before, staff. So motion will deny the appeal. Thank you, sir. All right, moving on to application H, which is 11439 Great Meadow Drive.
Justin, you're unmuted.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Hey Justin, yep, we can hear you.
Hey, good evening.
Yeah, so welcome back. You had a deferred decision on your garage and you are back with a lot more information, so we appreciate it.
Yep, I'm gonna say hi, but turn my video off. We are in transit, so I don't want to consume extra bandwidth, but appreciate everybody's time tonight.
Yeah, so just walk us through the quick
Michael,
update that you have.
Yep, so do I need to recap anything for the broader board, or are we good to just start with what we got here?
Just start with what you have, and I think we deferred this from a panel, right? I believe so. But so I was part of the panel, so I can help walk through any questions people may have. But go ahead and take it away to tell what we're working on.
Yep, you and John were, so thank you. So the two primary requests for more information centered around verifying the plat was to scale and factoring the neighboring property elevations. I feel like I've done that in the subsequent pages and drawings and the amendments, which I can walk through. And then also to include elevation drawings and consider reformatting the size of the garage. So the original proposal had a more rectangular 20 by 30 shaped garage, and our amended and reformatted is more squarish, which is 26 by 24, so almost square. And so I believe I'll cover everything kind of in the bulleted list as I run through the renderings here. But in the first page and the one that's up now in the top, just to be clear, on the far left there, that's an illustrative wall. We're not proposing a wall or fence or anything, but that's just to kind of highlight the property line. You can see the proposed garage there. The trees that are there are existing trees, and we're not proposing to remove any trees. And the current garage door is brown. That came up in the last panel meeting, but we're proposing to standardize all three doors to be the same. That's a recommendation of the panel. And additionally, the garage doors have been narrowed to the recommended 10-foot down from 12-foot doors, also at the last panel there in December. And so so that's the top illustration there. And then the bottom is just a different view, showing the view from kind of the front right of the house. Any comments or questions? You want me to keep going, or you want to do comments or questions as we go?
No, I think you just keep going, get through, and then I'll go around and see if anyone has any questions about anything. Okay.
Sure. On the next page there, then, if we could, thank you, is the rear elevation view. Again, the trees are existing there. We're proposing shrubs to fill any gap between the backfilled earth and grass and any visible foundation as part of the feedback from the affected party neighbor. There were 3 windows in the back. Now there's 2 just because of the reformatting of the garage. And like that screening will wrap around up a little bit of the hill in the back of the garage as well. And then on the next page, if we could, this just shows, looking closer to sort of the front corner of the neighbor's yard, the elevation view, more shrubs there, as I mentioned. That existing tree is there, and aren't planned to be moved. Or if, yeah, and so then on the next page there, there's just two views of sort of the street view driving up and driving down the street as passerbys might see it. And then on the next page, there are 2D drawings that show updated distances. You know, Michael, you were correct. There was an error on the drawing about the distance between the chimney and the proposed garage. So that has been corrected to 3 feet between the chimney and the garage, which makes the distance between the house and the garage at the front to over 5.5 feet. And then because of the reformatted garage, it increases the distance from the affected party's window, which was a point of concern, as well as it still also increases the distance to the property line. All of which I think are positive changes. The gutters and drainage amendments that we proposed in the second design review board meeting will carry forward. Obviously, it will be slightly different just because the dimensions change, but they'll still run along the same paths and run to the back of the houses. And then on the final page, or second to final page there, just confirming the reformatted dimensions from 30 by 20 to 26 by 24, as well as the door widths. And then on the last page there are the elevation drawings and related, including the affected party's house. And then I did mention that we discussed roof lines in the last panel meeting. And while I didn't have the dimensions during that meeting, I since got the measurements. And as it is today, because of the different grades, there's no standard measurement between where all those roof lines come. But with both the reformatting and talking to the contractor and doing the measurements myself, all of these things are going to be very close, within half a foot of each other across the entire property as they are today.
Great. Thank you, Justin. I think it looks.
Sure. Happy to hear comments or discussions.
Yeah, I'll go around and ask any questions. I think it looks significantly better from when we started at the board at the last panel meeting. I think it's come together nicely, but let me go around and see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we'll have some discussion. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Michael.
Sarah, did you have any questions for the? Before I go around, there was an affected party on this. Is the affected party on tonight?
I was not able to identify him, but I will ask if David is on. If you could raise your hand. I don't see David on. I just wanted to check.
Just put it in the chat if you are on, or I don't think I see anyone with the name or initials. So I think the applicant did a good job at answering any of the kind of previous issues that the appellant had, who is the direct neighbor here to the left. So, and I can kind of answer any of the concerns that they did have potentially to help. Sarah, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I recall this submission, and I recall part of the discussion about the elevations and having more detail. And I think that this resubmission answers any of the questions that I previously had on the submission. And I have no other questions. Thank you.
Great. Elena, do you have any questions?
Just wondering what's going to occur between the new garage and the existing house. Is that going to be paved in some way? Because it's never going to get any sun. It's not. Is that a
great question? And yes. It was originally going to be just plain concrete, but as part of our amendment, we're proposing in the last panel, we're also got approved a covered front porch with pavers that the design review board approved, and we're proposing carrying those pavers, in that middle section, so there'll be consistency from the front walkway, from the front porch to the driveway, as well as from the driveway to the rear.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, did you have any questions?
I think the only question I have is, are you expanding the driveway at all, or are you using the existing limits of the driveway?
It'll be close. I believe that we will need to kind of fan out, if you will, the back left of our driveway a little bit to reach the edge of the garage. But I would not consider it overly significant, but we are going to need to fan it out a bit.
Okay, I only asked, just wondering about like the couple of trees you've got between you and your neighbor. I'm not sure where those fall, if those would be affected by this kind of fanning out or widening the driveway. So that's the only reason I ask.
Thanks. Yeah, the cherries kind of going from the street back. We have a cherry tree, a maple tree, and a Japanese maple. The first two, the larger, older cherry tree and the newer maple, definitely not affected. We don't think the Japanese maple will be affected. If it was affected, it'd be by the garage and not the driveway. And if it were affected, we have plans to move it or relocate it because we don't want to lose it.
Thank you. I agree with everyone else. I think that the revisions you made are nice. They made some nice revisions, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
John?
Well, that's exactly what we asked him to do, and I have no problems with it.
Bruce, any comments?
No, I don't.
Mike B?
Nothing for me.
And Jim?
Nothing from me.
All right, and I don't have anything either. The only comment I would say is I think it turned out much more improved than what it was the first time it came to us, for the better. And I think it looks really well put in with the surroundings now and with the existing house. So I appreciate you doing that work and getting us these renderings. I know they can't always be easy, but I think it really helps explain why we wanted them, and it helps kind of communicate this project a little better. And I think that's probably why the affected party, isn't here tonight. Also, is that it did help some of their concerns as well with the massing and the scale of this addition is not nearly as large as I think originally it was looking like. So those are just kind of my comments. Would anyone want to make a motion?
I move we approve the revision.
We have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion necessary?
Would anyone entertain or the two that made the motion and approved, seconded the motion, entertain additions to the motion, just that the caveats that we discussed about the pavers between the house and the new garage, and the issue about the plantings not being impacted, or the Japanese maple being moved if it were to be impacted, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, his letter, his kind of explanation does include those things.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did miss that. Okay, then never mind.
Yeah, they both call out the pavers and the tree specifically as well. So all things that the applicant has thought about. So just for the record. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Yep, thank you. And Michael and John, thanks again for your help in December. This helped get us here, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Glenvale Condominium. I believe they are looking for some cameras.
Hi, this is Amanda Rodriguez. I'm their on-site manager.
Hi, Amanda.
I've been to these meetings before, but never had to speak. So I'm not really sure what you're looking for me to add to the application.
Well, if you could just walk us through briefly kind of what you're doing. Obviously, it's pretty straightforward in the application, but just kind of walk us through. I think that what the highlight would be, how the cameras are going to be installed, how many of them, and any other kind of pertinent information that we ask. But worst case, we'll go around and we'll ask you some questions. So
Sure thing.
you can-
I also did not plan appropriate for this meeting and I'm multitasking. So I am not looking at this application other than what you have on the screen. So I'm going off of memory as best possible. And I do apologize, but we are trying to install surveillance cameras throughout the property. You all more recently approved lighting. So our plan was to follow what was approved for the lighting. I think that's in one of the pages. So we did minimal conduit. If we have conduit, it was covered. We're coming through the trusses on the roof. Power is coming through those so that there is the only thing that is visible ideally is the camera itself. We are working with the company. They will be dipping it whatever color you all approve. And I think I gave you guys the color options. I had selected one that was very closely matching what is already an approved color for the association and for the community. So they'll take the white camera portion and dip it to whichever color you all approve. I think are installing 34 cameras, but I could be wrong. Our proposal is a 3-year process, and that is just fiscally driven due to the cost of the project and the association's budget. They don't want to have to assess the community, so that I know is different than what this board typically approves. And then the locations you can see on the map. I think, and then the
this
other.
says 23, Amanda,
Okay.
just for the record. It does say 23.
Then that's the correct amount.
Okay. All right.
34 is our number of buildings. So that actually, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
I know I had a number in my head. It was just the wrong one. And then we also are proposing signage to just let people know that are coming on the property and throughout the property to let them know they're under surveillance. And then those signs are being proposed to be attached to other signs that already exist on the property so that we don't have to add more posts and all of the other things.
Okay. Let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we will have some discussion. Sarah, do you have any questions for applicant?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Elena, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Brian, do you have any questions?
Yeah, the only question I have, I'm trying to understand the photos. I'm just reading it differently. Are there different bricks on? Are they all the same brick, or do you have a couple of different brick styles? And I only asked about the color of the dipping.
We have two colors. We have the lighter brick and the darker brick.
Okay.
But our windows and doors are all that same like dark bronze color, which is why we were proposing that color for the cameras.
Is that more the camo brown color is what you're saying?
Yeah, that dark
more
brown
close to
color.
close to what your windows are.
Yeah, the windows and then the frame around the doors as well also has that brown color.
Okay. Brian, anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, do you have any questions?
Nope. We reviewed this earlier today, and I've actually one question. It looks like the camera they're using could potentially be mounted on the soffit of the roof, and so I'm wondering if that had been considered. I know there's a lot of accessories to mount it different ways, but it would be much less apparent if it was mounted to the soffit, I think, and that seems to be an option that they have.
Yeah, I can definitely, if that's what the board wants, we can definitely work with our company to, we want as minimal wires as possible. We agree that won't look good. So our goal is to have little to none.
Yeah, the reason I suggest that is just that it would minimize the amount of wiring you have exposed on the face of the building.
Exactly. Yeah, that is our goal as well. And that has been our discussion with the company that is going to install it if we are approved.
I would just suggest having that discussion so that and making sure that you got the kind of coverage you wanted with the cameras, but minimize the amount of wiring you see.
Yeah, we increased the camera like, we basically doubled the budget because of the cameras that we chose, so that we would have that visibility, but still be able to install them close to the roof.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bruce, did you have any?
Just for clarification, the cameras, excuse me, the lights are there, so there is already wire there. Is that correct? And you're trying to work with the same wires. Is that right?
We were just going to mimic the way that they got power to the lights. That was our goal. If we had to, that was the plan. But I think it's gonna be on its own breaker, just so that it can stay.
Okay.
So that its power doesn't affect anything else.
Okay, and one other clarification.
Mhm.
The application indicates that the colors, there's two colors and they're listed by preference, and the first preference is black cherry, but you suggested it might be camo brown. I just trying to make sure we understood what your preference was.
I'm sorry, it's whatever is listed as
Okay.
the board's preference.
Yeah, okay.
If I was, okay, yeah, they thought that black cherry looked more like our brown that we have.
Mhm.
But if we needed to literally compare next to the brown that we have, we're happy to do so.
Okay. Thank you.
My apologies.
Mike B, you have any questions?
For me, sir, thank you very much.
All right. Jim, did you have any questions?
I do not.
So the only questions I have, Amanda, are, so I think my guess is that most of these cameras won't be able to be mounted on the soffit. I can only imagine that's why they recommended them being a color. That's the only reason why because the soffit color obviously is like kind of a lighter creamy color. And so I'm fine with that. What my recommendation would be that if there's any mounting of any of the mounting hardware that's shown on page, I don't know what page that is, where to go. There's like different styles of mounting hardware. If any of that is used, I would I would require that also be dipped in whatever color the camera is. So on page 15, there are some different mounting accessories. And if any of those are, I think it would look weird if the camera's dipped in red or brown, whatever color it ends up being, and then the accessory that it's mounting to is not. It's gonna kind of look out of place. So that would be the only recommendation if those were going to be used. If they're just going to flush mount these to the brick, then it may not be an issue. But I am going to probably put that kind of in as a stipulation. The other thing is with the signage. There's one thing I don't see as a size of the sign. I think we just need to get some clarification on what the size is. I know it's going on some existing poles, and there was two that were kind of near each other, and I was wondering whether it was kind of redundant to have two signs within about 20, it looks like about 20 feet of each other. Do you know, I think they're looking at potentially maybe the playground area. Is that, do you know why there's two signs there? Is the applicant still on? They may have muted themselves, so you may have to unmute them, Steph.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't unmute,
Yeah.
but it says y'all don't want to chat. So I was like, I don't know what to do. The
Yeah.
reasoning for that, if you go back to the map, if you don't mind. So those two sides that are right next to each other, okay. That is like a dead end if you're parking. And so, and that parking area is for our visitors. And so we wanted to make sure that if visitors were parking on the property, they saw it when they parked. That was the thought process with that.
And all of these signs are going on existing poles. That is accurate?
That's the proposal as it stands, but we're happy to do whatever you guys, really, as long as it gets approved, the board is happy to make any accommodations that the DRB deems necessary.
The only reason why I'm mentioning that is that I think if you put like some of these signs have three, some of the poles already have two signs on them. If you put a third sign, on it, is it going to look a little is going to start looking a little bit crazy. That's all.
It'll be like the parking signs in DC.
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to know which one to read and which one's
Right.
important.
Yeah.
That's my only comment of why, having multiple signs, does it, I don't even know, staff, do we know if all of the current signage is approved on the property? You may not know that question. A lot of the time, some of these signs may not even be kind of necessarily approved. Do we know, staff?
I actually don't know if all of the signs have been approved.
I only say that because some of them look a little large.
Yeah.
So the only hesitation I have is on the signage. I don't want to do the cameras. I think are obviously they're a necessity, and I think it's good. I think the proposal is fine. I just think the signage potentially may need a little bit more information. And I just want to make sure we're not putting 3 signs on one pole and it's going to be, a little bit messy looking versus maybe there's a nicer way to put a lower profile sign that has it lower to the ground just on a single pole or something. I don't know. I just think it needs to be studied just a little bit more. That's just my opinion. The board may disagree with me. But that's my only opinion. The cameras I think are good to go from what I see. But the signage I think just maybe needs a little bit more work, and it may be an overall thing with your signage. I almost want staff to look into it. We've had different condo associations come to us with signage before, and we've tried to work them towards a more cohesive, less signs, but more impactful signs. So people don't just see signs and then walk right by them because there's so many of them to read. They don't even look at them. They don't even care. So that's all I'm trying to avoid, basically. With that said, does anyone have, you guys want to, in the board, do we have any discussion? Is there a motion?
I'd like to discuss the option of just a motion to approve the cameras and deferral on the decision on the signs to let them study it further. Or I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion to, unless there's someone else who'd like to discuss, but I'll make a motion to approve the cameras as submitted with the stipulation we're trying to minimize the exposed wiring, that any accessories used to mount the cameras are dipped to or colored, however they want to color code it, to match the color of the camera, and that the camera color match most closely to existing window framing, trim that as possible. And defer decision on the sign to get signage to give the applicant an opportunity to provide further information and study signage throughout the condominium association property.
Okay. With the color going just before, well, let me hear if somebody wants a second, and then I'll have a further question. So there's a motion on the table.
I'll second.
All right, so this is a second. So further discussion. I'm leaning towards saying the camo brown. What I worry about with the black cherry or the dark cherry, whatever it's called, is on the computer it may look dark and kind of that more burgundy red, kind of darker. I just worry it's going to get up there and it's gonna be red. And so I almost would rather just recommend doing the camo brown as that to me looks the closest to kind of dark bronze, and will kind of, if not necessarily, doesn't necessarily need to hide them, but also just mimic exactly what the windows should be. Because what I'm thinking is these windows are old enough that they've probably deteriorated over time, and that's why they maybe look closer to the black cherry than they do the dark bronze that they originally were. So that would be my only recommendation to the motion, if you're okay with that, Elena, is that I would designate camo brown.
I'm fine with that.
I am as well.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I do have a question. Are we deferring the signage to the next available panel meeting or to the next full board?
Yeah, it could probably go to a panel. I think what with the deferral, I think they're gonna, look at providing how many signs are gonna be on a pole that they're recommending. And since it's only 6 signs, I would like to just see what those poles look like now with the signage. And I would ask staff to investigate whether the signs that they have there already are approved, or if they need to be bringing that kind of a cohesive package back with some of the signage overall. So
Yeah, the signage, when they bring it back, should obviously include the size. So just want to make that clear.
yeah. All right. So we have a motion. We had a second. We had some further discussion. We amended the motion. Any other further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right. Motion passes. All right. Thank you, Amanda. All right. Moving on to application J, Stonegate Village Apartments.
Yeah, so we have Kathleen, you're unmuted, and then we also have Connie Fan. Kathleen, just a quick question. I didn't see
Yes.
Tony on. Is he going to be joining us tonight, or?
He should be. I thought he was also tagged as J Stonegate Village. Is that correct?
I have a Connie Fan.
Yes, Connie, and I thought there was a third person also noted as J. Yeah.
No, I don't have another J, but Tony, if you're here, could you?
Oh, yes, he is. Actually, you can see he's raising his hand.
Gotcha. I'm unmuting him now.
All right. And then I will be sharing my screen. So, you've disabled it. Okay, I see that. Okay, thank you.
Kathleen, it's Connie here. There's we also have Lori Beth online.
Okay.
And the arborist, Lashana.
Yes.
Yes.
So is Kathleen able to share her screen? Do that?
So I'm trying to, and it pops up post disabled participant.
Yes, you won't be able to share your screen, Kathleen. Everything that you've provided us ahead of time is what's going to be presented at tonight's meeting.
Okay, can you pull up that PowerPoint that we forwarded?
Yes.
Thanks.
Oh, so Tony, is that the latest and greatest?
We've made a few revisions to it, but essentially it's the same one.
Okay.
I was hoping we could do that, but
Yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes if we let people drive, we never get it back. So we usually just take what application we have also for the record. That way nobody changes anything that we don't see.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of
just
that,
keeps
but
it-
that's understandable.
Keeps it easy. So I guess, Tony, I don't know who's going to be leading the presentation, but
Yeah, I'll
you guys
kick
want
it
to
off.
walk us through what you guys are doing? You guys are doing a kind of a bunch of updates.
Yeah.
Just kind of walk us through what's going on.
Yeah, Lashana, could you start with that PowerPoint? Are you able to do any of that? I think
What was presented, they were individual. So the way that we have it set up, if you could tell me which one you would like to go with first, we have proposed lighting and the photometric study. We have the landscaping plan. Then we go into the trim and the siding, and then the dry events. So which one would you like to start with first?
Okay. We can start with here. Let me just start this, kind of kick things off, then I'll let the architects take it from there. I guess I can't start my video either. There it is. Okay. So hi, I'm Tony Essie, Associate Director of our Design Development Construction Division here at Fairfax County Housing Department. And we're at an early stage in design of a renovation of really our largest county-owned housing property in Reston, and that's Stonegate Village, right next to Glenvale, what was just discussed. This is a major project for us. We're looking at renovation of all the interior spaces. It really hasn't been renovated significantly since it was constructed in the early 70s. So you're seeing some images there. Now it's got a lot of work to do. Okay, we did a little bit of work in the 90s on it, just kind of addressing some kind of deferred maintenance things, but we have not done a thorough renovation on here. So we're about 40% done with design, and we really want to get your the DRB concurrence on some critical issues before we proceed a lot further and execute a lot of design effort on some things that we know are of interest to you. Notably these three things: site lighting, landscape plan and tree removal, and exterior. Just to tell you, the interior is totally changed, all the windows. Right now, we've got a central laundry facility, and we're going to go back to individual washers or dryers in each unit. Not something you guys have, purview over, but just thought I'd kind of fill you in on that. So it's a major project for us. We've got a lot of, before I turn it over to the experts, we've got some challenges on site there. We've got combination of no sun, probably more topographic changes than any housing area or affordable housing area, at least area I'm aware of in Reston. I'm a Reston resident as well. We're by Lake Audubon. And we've got some significant erosion problems that we're trying to deal with on site that we've got some solutions for. We're going to need your feedback. And as I'm sitting here going through the other applications, thinking a big part of this really, I think at this point, is us understanding what we need to provide you guys in the future with to fully satisfy you on these big issues going forward. So we really realize we probably don't have it all, but we want to be super clear on what kind of things you might want to see to again satisfy your concerns in these three major issues. So with that, Kathleen, if you can kind of kick it off. Sure.
Hi, my name's Kathleen O'Hearn. I'm the project architect, Grumman Parker Architects, for this project. Since you're running this show, I guess where are you going to go? Okay, to the lighting. So for the site lighting, currently the site lighting does not meet zoning or any safety requirements. We are proposing to upgrade the entire site lighting to provide 1 foot candle of lighting level throughout all of the parking areas and to the building entrances. And again, that is to improve resident safety and security and to meet state housing standards for light levels. I believe you have a photometric, excuse me. This is the fixture, the full cutoff lighting fixture that we are proposing. And then I believe you also have a photometric study, a graphic to show. So with this graphic, this is the entire site, and I know it's very difficult to read, but that grayish blue area, that is showing where the foot candles are 0. And you can see as we approach the edges of the site for the most part, it is all at 0. And then that brownish kind of orangey brown, that's where the lighting is concentrated. And again, it's at the site entry points, at all of the parking lots, at pathways through the site, and of course between the buildings. This is a good graphic to see. There are 14 buildings and they are grouped in pairs of 2, and in between the entries to the units are in between. And we are calling those the mews, and our landscape architects will talk a little bit more about those. But again, thank you. Those are the areas where we're proposing to add some additional lighting, again, for safety concerns and to meet current zoning and whatnot. But again, this graphic really explains where the lighting will be concentrated. And then again, that gray blue color is all at 0. So it drops off to 0. So I guess what would be the next topic? Do you want to talk about the siding, or do you want to talk about the landscape?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right. So I will pass this on to Connie and Lori Beth from LSG.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. So my name is Connie Finn, and I'm a principal with the firm LSG Landscape Architecture. And with me tonight is my colleague Lori Beth Donachie, and she's the arborist. And the renovation work impacts some of the trees on site. And we're here to present the proposed ideas, and want to seek some of your input as well. So if you don't mind moving to the next sheet. Just wondering. Okay, so the firm has done some tree inventory work, and Lori Beth, if you don't mind, just give a high-level summary of the conditions of the trees currently on site.
Yes, so as you can see, we surveyed a couple hundred trees on the property. We went out and identified the species and the tree conditions. So there are a number of species in between the buildings that are non-native species like crepe myrtles and Nellie Stevens holly and magnolia. So they've sort of, reached their mature size at this point, and they're very crowded and sort of leaning and not providing good form to the tree. And then around the edges, there are larger canopy trees, and we did have a number of trees that are starting to decline for reasons of being the species. Some of them are white pine, so they are just, more of a short-lived tree when they're in a landscape setting. And, others from storm damage or whatnot over the years, they're also showing signs of decline. So there's just a number of factors impacting the trees on this site.
So this is a reference plan, shows some of the potential tree removal, I believe.
Yes, in the legend, there are X's for trees being removed.
Right. So there are 3 different categories here. If we look into a total tree removal, quantity wise, one of the things that as part of this project, we recognize the property was developed in 1971. And the views, as Kathleen mentioned earlier, the walkway leading into the entry to these apartment buildings, the walkways are not ADA compliant. They're simply too steep at about 7.1%. And part of the project also recognized that the current playground are not up to code, and the playground are not ADA compliant either. Also, as part of the fair housing requirement, we need to identify ADA parking spaces that would link to the building entrance, ADA building entrances. The team decided that in order to adequately address the ADA issue, the walkway between the buildings within the MU space need to be regraded to bring it up to today's standard. That's why you can see on some of them, they're much more meandering in alignment. The purpose of that is to increase the run of the sidewalk so that you would be able to minimize the slope as you walk down between the buildings. What does that mean? Once you have to regrade within such a short distance between the buildings, it impacts the trees, existing crepe myrtles and magnolias. As Lori Beth mentioned earlier, these are non-native trees and they have reached their maturity level. And as part of the regrading, the disturbance will get into the so-called critical root zone. And that typically means the tree will have to be replaced. The second category has to do with the extensive erosion issue. that Tony had mentioned earlier in some of the existing images. You can see those large trees at the base of the trees. There's significant erosion problem, and which led to exposed roots, which makes it even harder to plant additional understory to stabilize the existing soil. And the third category has to do with the trees that Lori Beth has identified earlier in terms of the rest of the site. Trees that have had some damages done to them, and also large pines. And as you guys probably know, in Fairfax County today, there's a discourage, the county urban forestry would discourage the use of white pine trees going forward. So those are considered as short-lived trees and present a hazard to human activities close by. Next slide, do we have? These are the earlier drawings that we identified within the, I don't know who's controlling the screen.
The staff, can we go down to like page 30 where it actually shows this landscaping planning plan and stuff, just so.
Oh, great, wonderful. Yes, thank you. Thanks. Thank you for flipping to that screen. Even though the team have to remove some trees as part of the ADA compliant activity, as well as addressing erosion issue, as you can see on the screen, the shaded area are what's currently planned to receive additional landscaping. When we see additional landscape, we are talking about from ground cover, shrubs, ornamental, and large trees. As once the county finish the walkway system upgrades.
Staff, if you go down a page, we can kind of get a better zoomed in version of what they're talking about. Yeah.
Right. I believe we are proposing over 500, right, Lori Beth, in terms of just quantity altogether?
Yeah, approximately 500 new trees and shrubs being planted in addition to the trees that we're preserving.
And just, if I could interject, is there any sort of schedule that that designates what these all are? I didn't see anything, and I just was curious if I was missing the page, or I guess is it page 33 here that these are all, and then we kind of have to, they're just, normally they're labeled with letters or something, but it's strictly the picture. We then have to designate what they are on the up above. It's just kind of hard to read. That's all I'm trying to, but is that correct? Right, I have to designate the picture to this table to figure out what they are.
This is the plant schedule. The proposed plant schedule, Mr. Wood. The trees have been identified with symbols. So they're on the left-hand side, so are the shrubs. They have all been identified. Quantity as well on the second column. The ground cover have not been, it's a family of plants that we identify. Like Tony said, this is earlier in the design phase. We typically don't get into the specific ground cover choices, but the trees as well as the shrubs have all been identified.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand that part. I guess it's just, I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm looking at, let's say, example, building 3. I'm trying to find what that plan is that you're putting, you know, it looks like there's 20 of them to the left of building 3. You know, I'm going down here, it could be a magnolia, it could be the a flowering cherry. They all just look similar at my scale that I have. So it's just, I'm just trying to designate what they are. And that's all I'm saying. It's just a little bit, and I know you guys are early on in the process, so we'll keep going. I think it's not critical. I just, maybe a little more clarity would be better for us to be able to understand exactly what these pockets of plants are.
I believe this is earlier, sort of our first presentation to Resident DRB. The goal, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, the goal is really give you a high level overview of the amount of trees that will be taken down because of the improvement needed for the site in order to bring the units up to today's standard. And as we refine the design, each of the species will be studied and most likely replacing kind or similar, just to maintain that current aesthetics.
Yeah, that's our challenge here is, we're at an early design stage. We can obviously provide more detail to you. But we wanted to get your reaction on kind of an overall plan, if we're on the right track, and what else do you exactly want to see from us going forward. Now, the other thing again is to show the tree removal. I want to be clear to you all on that. So can you find the tree removal diagram on that? Connie, can you direct what sheet that is? That's so that one's we've got a lot of trees to remove. Okay, I think we got 174 trees, including understory. So I want to be super clear to you on that one. And
and I appreciate that. That's what I guess I don't at the scale of the drawings and the way they're being depicted right now. It's hard for me to follow that, and I'm just speaking for myself. Maybe the other board members could tell. I just can't. I can see the new plan. I see that there's lots of plants going in, but I don't see exactly what the impact is on the site. And I think
Tony, Mr. Wood, we gotten the PowerPoint in there. It would have this very nice summary. What Tony is referring to is currently we've identified 174 trees to be removed. And within the Muse space, and there are 14 buildings here or 7 Muse. Within the Muse, 101 trees, which are all understory, and that Nanny, Stephen, Holly, they are currently planned to be removed as part of the accessibility operation. And because of the erosion between the pair of the building, in between the pair of building, you see some squiggling lines. Those are the anti-erosion measures that we are planning to implement within the wooded area. Those are what we call the biodegradable wattles. Within that space, we've identified 30 trees to be removed in order to address the current erosion control issue. And the rest of the site, we've identified 43 trees that are having some serious health issues that's scattered throughout the rest of the site. I've marked them as potentially to be removed because of health issues. And the summary is in that first page, tree inventory, probably page 21.
Gotcha. Okay.
All of them are identified here. Altogether, there should be 174 crosses.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Just full transparency. It's very difficult to read this.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm stating. I think, and Tony, I think you're making it clear. It was on my agenda for action tonight. So the way I take that is I have an application that I need to be voting on tonight, to be giving you guys. If it sounds like maybe you guys are just looking for maybe conceptual kind of approval where we're kind of going the right direction, but you guys will come back obviously with much more fine-tuned documents.
Yeah, we had discussed early on that this was a working level meeting. And so I think maybe that got missed, and that was always our intention, to show you what we have at a schematic stage and get your input back on those key items. I don't know how that decision makes. This is new to us. This is again a very large project that we're kind of still feeling out what the sequence of work is on here. We can provide you whatever you want. I just want you to be super specific as to what information you need from us to to make you satisfied with the level of landscape changes we're doing here. And we're getting to the siding in a minute, but that's what we're looking for. I don't know what that means as far as you as a response, but we'll figure that out.
Actually, this is Kathleen. I have a question. I'm unsure. Do you receive the documents ahead of time? In the future, should we format these as it's only presented in this manner? I mean, certainly just the sheer scale of this project is so large. I mean, looking at this inventory, certainly this is illegible in this kind of format. We could change that if this is the only way that you view it. If you get the documents ahead of time and review it, would be, understanding that will be good for us.
Yeah, no, we definitely get it ahead of time. So I have my own PDF that I'm looking at on my, 30-inch monitor, trying to zoom in even, and I still can't read what's going on. So we do get them about a week ahead of time. I think for this size of a change to the not to the topography, but to the nature and the vegetation, I think what would be great is if we did some sort of on-site working session where a couple of the board members come out to the site, meet with you guys, and we actually walk the property and see the challenges that you guys are facing.
That would be awesome. And we requested that about a year ago, and maybe we're not asking the right questions, but
No, LaShonda met us out there, and we provided great information on the process. I just think this one is so unique, though. We're not sure on the exact steps, but we tried to address that to kind of put the information in a different format with the PowerPoint. I guess we weren't, and that didn't make it for some reason. We struggled with how to present this because it is a little different. Your size of it, yeah.
If I may chime in here, the drawing on the screen was submitted as part of the Resident Association submission, and these are meant to be printed at 24 by 36 inch format.
Yeah.
And not on screen, obviously.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think that's maybe where I think maybe a working session, because this is so big, would be great, where we have a big roll of plans, we can lay it out, we can walk the site, we then can go back to the conference room and walk through kind of exactly what we're going through. I do think probably not having the PowerPoint is hindering the presentation to be able to understand it fully. But I think since we're here tonight, we can see what you guys are trying to do. At the end of the day, you're trying to improve the property, to bring it up to code, and to beautify it. At the end of the day, that's your guys' goal, and I think I understand that. I just think we obviously will need more information. So let's go through maybe the siding and the windows. And I think there also, but maybe before we pass it, I think there's the playground. Obviously, I'm sure the PowerPoint maybe had some more. My initial thing is I'm going to need some color. Okay, what color is this going to be? Are we, what are we going with? But once again, now that I know this is conceptual, my questions kind of change. And so if you guys want to talk about the playground, we can, or we could just jump to the siding and windows.
It is in the package. Now that I kind of know which package you're showing on the screen, start with sheet L112. 111, 112, and 113. And those are the playground.
That's slide 25.
Right. So the problem with the current playground, first, the equipment are hugely outdated, and it presents a safety issue. And secondly, the accessibility issue. This playground was probably installed around the same time as the apartment came into being. So you can see a couple of mature trees, and the whole idea back in the days was to nestle this playground amongst the trees. And it has sort of matured over the years, and you can see tree stumps there. And the other thing is, in order to nestle a playground within a tree cluster of trees, there's accessibility issue because from the common sidewalk to where the existing trees are, there's significant amount of grade differences. In this case, you can see from this proposed playground realignment, there's 4 contour lines there, and you can tell that there's existing grading issue. So part of the new, part of the improvement is really address the ADA. Fair housing requires playground within cluster development to set aside certain playground to be ADA accessible. So we've given the amount of units over here, we identified 2 playgrounds that would be ADA accessible, and they're right off that improved accessible route. And the rest of the playground, we're going to try to keep as much as possible for the purpose first preserve that existing canopy. Currently, seems deemed healthy. So we will stay within that area and put some new play equipment in there and replace the existing surface with engineered wood fibers and accessible material, and observe the safety zone that is a requirement of today's safe play. For overall is really bring the playground up to today's standard, essentially.
So just to reiterate, it's a concept level, schematic level submission. We've got a lot of detail to provide on exactly what's going to go there. Elevations, cut sheets, things like that. I guess at this point would be, if this generally looks like something that's acceptable, that would be the extent of what we would be looking for from you.
Right.
Okay, great. If you guys could walk us through the siding and windows, and then we'll go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you guys, okay?
This is Kathleen again. So this is kind of the conceptual rendering showing we are proposing putting hardy plank siding on top of the existing stucco. We want to preserve the look, all of the window size openings, they will remain the same. We're still proposing to keep kind of the wide trim. We are proposing breaking up the buildings with some colors, some subtle color differences. Most of the buildings are clusters of 3 buildings each, and you can kind of see, if you go back to the last image, you can kind of see where we have a little tan with a green trim and a ivory with a green trim, and then or with a tan trim, and then a blue with a gray trim. And again, this is very conceptual. We're very open to your thoughts on color. Right now, the next image is the existing. Oh, I'm sorry. This is also showing some window patterning that we were proposing. Again, the opening size, the window size overall is the same as what's existing. We were just proposing some different window pattern, mullion patterns, if you will. I'm not sure if you have an existing photo. These are some images of the existing. All of these buildings are a very soft, maybe ivory or white stucco, but the window trim is different. Some is green, some is a deep red. So there are some color variations on the site. And again, we were just proposing maybe we could break up the large mass of the building into 3 colors, again, to better identify the way that the units are. All of these buildings have an entryway and a breezeway, and then a stairway up to the different units. And so each building would be broken up. That slide was your typical hardy plank siding. We were looking at Arctic white and cobblestone and Navajo beige, the mountain sage and Boothbay blue. Yep, and then the mountain sage and then yeah, right there. So those were the colors we were kind of playing around with, but again, we're very open to your suggestions on the color. I think if you go to the next one, the elevations, you can kind of better understand. Again, you can see how severe the slope is. The buildings kind of step down, and the windows are the same size. We are going to replace all of the HVAC units. There's no units on the outside of the building. They're all interior, but there would be some louvers. Also, we are adding a washer and dryer to every unit. So there would be a small dryer vent that would be an add to the facades. The roofing was done recently. We have no changes to the roofing. Here's a cut sheet of your typical dryer vent. I believe it's 4 inches by 4 inches, so it's pretty small. The color would be selected to minimize the look on the facade. And then I think you also have the louver size. The louver, that's the dryer vent still. Yes, it's a through wall unit. The size of the louver for the new unit is slightly different than the existing, so that opening would be modified slightly to accommodate the new unit, the new louver. I believe those are the highlights. So if you have any questions or
yeah. So let me go around the room and just see if anyone has any questions for you guys, and just kind of let my fellow board members know. So it looks like they're kind of just looking for some feedback generally. I don't even know if we really need to necessarily be voting on anything. It would just be more of kind of some recommendations on what other things you guys may want to see when they come back for approval. So Sarah, do you have any questions for them, comments?
No, none at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Elena, did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, it would be nice, and you don't have to tell us now, to know the comparison of the size, the louver size. Is it smaller? Is it larger? And, obviously we want them placed on the elevations. Could we go back up to the color choices? Can't really tell if it's the same page.
38.
Thank you.
Yep.
Being very familiar with hardy plank, Arctic white is pretty stark next to Boothbay blue or the mountain sage. You might, if you're talking about mixing colors, you might look at something like light mist or one of the beiges, just because Arctic white is very, very white and the others have much more hue to them. And it just might not blend that well. And then if we could look at the window options again. I forgot which direction they're in. I'm on that page. I'm on page 37 on my screen. So yeah. So I think that the wide trim gets lost on the elevations on the right. And since there is so little articulation in the elevation that, I see them in the drawing, but they're the same color as the siding. So I just, those windows on the right seem very, how do I say this? Use a, like very precious, I guess, compared in scale to the on the left, which is more like the original.
Okay.
I personally don't, I like the idea of breaking the windows up with mullions, either the top right or the bottom right, but I think something you need to consider the trim more so that they just don't feel so lost in the elevation. So those are my comments.
Okay, so I guess though conceptually it sounds like it's acceptable to use hardy plank instead of and not replace the stucco in kind.
Personally, I think it is fine. The stucco, the hardy plank is going to give you less trouble over the years and going to hold up better.
Thank you.
Thinking about the color combinations.
Brian, did you have any comments, questions for the applicants?
Yeah, just a couple questions and that are comments also. And I think that in terms of looking at this elevation, I think, coming back with like rendered elevations of each building and understanding if you're grouping them in clusters of 3, like if, cluster A gets this palette and cluster B gets another one, or how you're plan to kind of mix and match those colors. Because I think that the rendering on the previous page 36 does a really good job of showing how you're kind of mixing and matching. But if just in terms of what we would expect to see would just be, kind of a full palette and like I said, rendered elevations of kind of every building for us to kind of take a look at would be really helpful to see how they're all kind of playing together.
I'm sorry, so you're envisioning more than 3 colors, or
no, not at all.
Okay,
No, not at all. It's totally up
Okay.
to you. I just think just being able to fully describe and show what those end up being.
All right.
So no, not at all. I mean, this may be it. I mean, but just showing how that goes through all 14 buildings. And then one question, what are you picturing for like the paving material through the Muse and around the site?
I will defer to Connie on that. I believe it's concrete.
Yeah. For ADA, they're very particular about slopes, and asphalt's tough to do very accurate slopes with. So concrete is, we can really nail that down, and inspectors and different folks, they want to be absolutely sure that the slopes are acceptable, and we can get that better control with the concrete. Now we could texture it or something like that. The concrete is what we propose.
Gotcha. And I think if there are any variations, like you're saying, they're even textured versus a different finish, would be really helpful on one of these site plans to know kind of how that breaks down in the different zones. Like if we're in one of the Muse versus on like a kind of it looks like, one of these major sidewalks going to the parking lot, something like that. If there's any way those are distinguished would be helpful.
Yeah, just to tell you, I mean, we're relocating some of our accessible units to areas where we can actually fit in an accessible slope. So much topography out there, which is a bit of a project cost, but there's no way around it. So it's the accessible routes are a big deal on this job.
Thanks, Connie. I have to beg someone to let me speak here. It's Connie again. Yes, the thought is for long-term maintenance, concrete will be a better material. The site has a lot of asphalt, but if you go there today, you can see the extensive root system has caused upheaving, causing damage to the existing asphalt trail, which would render it inaccessible in places. So like Tony said, definitely for the ADA units between the Muse, our desire is to replace with concrete.
Brian, any other questions?
Yeah, my last comment would just be in terms of the kind of areas around the tot lots. I think, they're the views we've gotten here are detailed nicely. If we're looking, strictly from like the guidelines, I think it talks about screening them with vegetation and things like that to kind of reduce its visual impact from the neighboring apartments or whatever. And so I'm just curious if you all, but the way it's rendered now, it looks a little sparse in terms of kind of landscaping or screening of those. And I'm just curious if was that a choice that was made to make them more prominent, or do you think you will kind of enhance the landscaping plan around those tot lots?
There are two types of playground here. One is more suitable for kids below 5 years old, and between 5 to 12, it's a different kind of playground. Typically, for kids that's younger than 5 years old, it's recommended to provide some sort of a barrier to prevent kids from running away from their supervisors, their nannies or parents. But in terms of landscaping, as it is illustrated in the previous exhibit, the intent is to add some shrub masses back to the site. We can certainly add some of that to around the playground to better guide the behavior from the kids. The elevation that was showing previously, I believe that was strictly for the purpose of veneer facade discussion. Which generally architects like to keep the landscaping to minimum in order for you all to have a full view of the elevation. But once the project is implemented, there'll be a more holistic review of what that vegetation means to the facade.
Great. Brian, anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
John, do you have any questions or comments for the applicant?
Comments. When I saw this come across as one of our projects to look at tonight, I was very excited about it because I think that apartment complex has gotten very tired looking over the years. And I'm excited to see that there's some renovation going to be done on it. I think the hardy plank will provide an extra level of detail on the facades of the buildings to provide a little more scale to the mass of the buildings. Looking forward to seeing the development of all of these ideas. I think they're going to be very nice, but we'll want to see how they develop. We've been told it's like 40% review, and I think there's a lot of room for things to be fleshed out and looked at. So thank you very much for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Bruce?
No, I agree with those thoughts. I think we're looking forward to getting more detail, and I was wondering whether the on-site meeting might be a good way to help the applicant forward with that.
We're definitely up for it.
Okay.
Yep.
I agree. Mike B?
I would echo Elena's thoughts with regard to some of those colors on the hardy plank. That white, having seen it in person, is really stark. But yeah, no, it's exciting. Looks like an awesome project. Looking forward to some more details in the future. And I think Bruce is spot on about meeting on site and taking a walk. So.
And then Jim, you have anything?
Yeah, it would be nice to see how the variation in the color schemes is not only applied to the different groups of buildings, but also how that interplays like in these pairs of buildings in the muse areas, because I think you have a real opportunity to make these large buildings much more interesting and bring the scale and bring it down. So it'll be interesting maybe to see a perspective view through maybe a typical muse area and how the variation in the colors can play off of from one building to another one.
Yeah, I would clarify that or add to that comment with some of the recent townhouse projects we've been looking at. New construction and stuff have done a pretty good job on that kind of thing. So it might be interesting to share some of those ideas of how various related colors, but different colors can interact with one another and provide continuity, but still a change in scale to the building appearance.
Agreed. And the only, so I have a couple comments, just kind of questions. So I think just so you guys get some feedback, I think the lighting obviously is a necessary upgrade. I think the fixture you guys picked is appropriate for kind of the style that you're going for with the new updates. My question is this, and maybe it says it on there, is this fixture kind of in line with new Fairfax County standards with dark sky and all the kind of requirements that they have? I'm sure that you guys.
Yes, that's what full cutoff means. That means
Okay.
that all of the light is directed down. No light escapes up. So that would be dark sky compliant.
So staff, can you go to slide 14? There's like more of like a blade looking fixture in our application. Is this being put anywhere? And if it is, where?
That would be in the parking areas. And I believe that this is very similar to what is out there in the parking areas. The other fixture is along the walkways and in the mews. And I believe this one is also full cutoff, meaning it is dark sky compliant, but I will double check that. I'll make sure that all of the fixtures are appropriate.
Are you going to?
I can speak to that since our firm is involved with some of the zoning updates right now. Both fixtures are cut off. You can see the village style, the previous one. It does not have a lens on the site, and the light source is coming from the top.
Okay.
And
what color temperature are you guys thinking?
I'm sorry.
What color temperature are you guys recommending for the light?
Fairfax County's requirement is 3000 K.
Okay. Great.
Right,
and
but-
then go ahead, John.
No, I was making a comment, but go ahead.
Okay. We also recommend 3000 K max. That's what I would recommend here. I think you guys have enough coverage that the color temperature should be adequate. The siding, I think, is a good upgrade. I don't know anything about the existing structure that's there. I don't know if it's real stucco just with like a scratch coat and a metal lath, or if it's actually, if there's any sort of insulation involved with the stucco right now. You guys obviously would investigate that, I'm assuming, before you attach the siding.
Yes, that'll be a major component of the design. And certainly we were very anxious to have your buy-in before we really did a thorough deep dive into how it would attach and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think overall it's a good upgrade. I think I'm still hit or miss on I think the windows, we maybe need some arrangements. I think, if you go to smaller windows, they probably won't be egress compliant, if I had to guess. I don't know what these, if these are, I'm assuming a lot of these are on bedrooms, etc. So
that's correct.
I don't know how much, we can really make them kind of broken up depending on what, the one window arrangement. I don't know if that would be a window, an egress window compliant or not.
We're not proposing making any of the openings smaller. It's just a patterning on the glass, just Muntin.
Gotcha. It'd be just okay. But the windows would be getting all replaced, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then the only other aesthetic thing with the trim, I think the large trim to me has always stuck out, and it's almost, I don't know if it's too bold. That's just been my initial thought with this complex that, ever since I've seen it, since I moved to the area about, 10 years ago. Are you proposing, I don't know if that's an 8-inch, it's definitely thicker than most. And I'm wondering
it is
on some of the rendering, are you guys going back with the 8-inch? Are you thinking of scaling it back to maybe 6-inch, or, have you guys given that any thought? I think we would just want to know where that lands.
In that one image that had the different Muntin patterns, you could see there were the and I believe it was if I'm not mistaken, it was Elena mentioned it. There there were some where we were keeping the larger trim, and then there was others where yes, this image, and you can see, minimizing the trim. So, we'll definitely work with you and come up with the right solution. But that's a smaller detail that we're looking forward to working with you and finding the right fit. But you can see just some differences we were exploring.
Great. So I guess what I would say is I honestly don't think there's I think you guys are going in the right direction. I don't think there's really enough we can give you a conceptual approval, but I don't really know what I'm conceptually really approving at the moment. Minus maybe just that you guys can keep exploring hardy siding and the lighting replacement. The tree, just based on the presentation that I have, the trees, I don't fully understand what's happening. I understand that there's a lot of tree removal, a lot of large canopy going away, but I don't know, I don't fully understand it without, I think, a site visit. So I wouldn't want to conceptually approve that and then get out there and then say, no, these 50 trees, we'd like to try to save that canopy, whatever it be, right? So does it help you guys in any reason to have a formal conceptual approval on the hardy or the lighting, or is kind of just, hearing our feedback enough?
I'll leave that to Tony. I'm pleased to hear the comments that you have. Are you good with that, Tony?
I think we're fine. I haven't heard any opposition other than colors. So I think that gives us a level of comfort that we can proceed with that. And yeah, the colors, again, we're at relatively early design stage. That's something we can definitely tweak after we provide some more information on elevations and studies and the views and all that. Totally understand.
And you guys always, you have a couple blank canvases there where you guys could, theoretically paint the stucco and do some, mock-ups, full-size mock-ups of the paint colors ahead of time, and really get a good feel. Even if you just paint, a 3x3 swatch with some trim next to it or something, you might be able to get a good idea of some of the color combinations out there. But I do think what we'll do, since it is staff, since it's an action item on my agenda, what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to recommend it for a deferral to allow them further study. There's good in concept ideas happening here, but I'm going to make a motion to defer and recommend also a on-site walkthrough with the applicant, with any DRB members that may be willing to volunteer to attend said site visit. That way we can make a motion. So there's a motion on the table.
Mr. Wood, if I may interject here, for whoever might be interested for the site visit, will you please provide the name? We will print out some large format sheets so that the tree information will be available to them before the site visit.
That would be perfect. Yep. And maybe it's something with staff will work out, but maybe we visit the site. It's just down right the road from the staff head or from RA headquarters, where we could go back to the conference room and lay out the plans and kind of have a feel for, if it's a nice enough day, we can do it there. But if it's, if it's cold or whatever, we can come back and lay out the plans and go through it. Just with this scale of a project, I think a work session is kind of a good option for you guys during your restudy period during this deferral. So basically the deferral just keeps the application alive. It doesn't, deny it, doesn't approve it, but keeps it alive. So we can just kind of keep molding it as we get to the next steps. So there's a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion in the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. So we'll get together. We'll email staff, board members. Just send your interest to staff. LaShonda, please remind us to reach out, and then maybe we can try to set something up for early next month, where we can get out there on site.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on to Fairway Apartments.
We do have the applicant on, Scott, asking him to unmute. Scott, you're unmuted.
Hello, how are you guys doing tonight?
How's it going, Scott?
Yep.
If you could walk us through the updates you are doing, I can actually look out my window and see Fairway Apartments, so I'm very familiar with the site. Walk us through what you're doing, and we'll take it from there if we have any questions. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. As part of an interior unit renovation project, we're going to be starting relatively soon. Due to the number of units we're going to be upgrading, Fairfax County is requiring that we make 5 units handicap accessible. There are currently 0 handicap accessible units at the property at this time. So basically what we're planning on doing is replacing handicap accessible doors at the rear patio entrances. Essentially, we're going to be turning the rear patios into the entrances for these specific units. Like I said, it's a total of 5 units, and we will also pour a sloped slab on top of the existing patio slab in order to create a barrier-free entry. And then we'll be making parking lot adjustments and pouring sidewalks to the rear of the properties, to the rear of the units, in order to make a handicap accessible sidewalk. So like I said, that's all going to be happening in a total of 5 units, which is going to be occurring on 3 buildings, those 3 right there that you're showing. We'll also be, like I said, we're going to be adjusting the parking areas to provide accessible parking spaces for the residents, along with, handicap accessible signage.
Okay, great. Let me go around and see if anyone has any questions on it, and then we'll see if they do. Sarah, do you have any questions for Scott?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Elena, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Brian, did you have any questions?
No, not right now.
John, did you have any questions?
No, I looked at the drawings earlier and it seemed pretty much straightforward.
Okay. Bruce, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mike?
Negative, sir. Thank you.
Jim?
No.
Well, you guys just leave it to me. I have a couple questions, nothing too crazy. So just to be clear, the new frames that you're proposing for the doors, they're going to basically match the existing frame color that's there. It's kind of hard to tell in the pictures. I mean, it's kind of like I don't know if the actual back doors are white right now, or if there's a white trim around them with an aluminum color door. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, they're white currently.
Okay, and are you proposing to go back with, I mean, it's basically looking like right now the current back doors are already split up into 3 sections already. You're just replacing the middle with a more formal door versus a slider.
Exactly.
Is what's happening. Okay.
That's right.
And
yeah,
then,
I mean, the overall look is not really going to change all that much, from the rear.
Right. And then the only thing is it looks like there's going to be a couple bushes removed from some rears of the properties that are impacted for this new concrete sidewalk. Essentially, it's going to need to lead to the rear.
Yeah, exactly. So that right there, you're looking at a building that's going to have 2 handicap units next to each other. So yeah, those will be removed.
Is there any proposal to put bushes back? Because that would be my only kind of recommendation, would be to either try to transplant those or introduce new bushes to kind of help screen these rear patios, which is why those kind of existed to begin with.
Yeah, for sure, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Those were kind of my questions. Does anyone have any discussion on it? I mean, like it's pretty straightforward. So, I'm happy to make a motion with those. I'll make a motion to approve the application with the stipulation that the 5 unit entrances will have plant screening of similar style to what's existing on the outer perimeter of the sidewalk where the unit door is located.
I'll second your motion, Michael. And commentary, I like the additional screening there. It's there now. Let's kick it out and keep it there, right?
Yep. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thanks, Scott. All right, moving on to application L for the Chick-fil-A North Point Village Center.
The busiest Chick-fil-A I've ever seen.
We have Frank and Kat Alvarez, both unmuted.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, welcome. Thank you for being patient. If you could walk us through your application for your kind of new canopies.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. If you can go to the site plan, and if you can, is there a way to blow it up so that you can get into kind of the site area instead of just showing the whole plan, and then maybe scroll down a little bit? So probably how I'd like to start this off is explain to you what's going on a nationwide program that we've been part of for over the last 5 years. This is called the Chick-fil-A Canopy Rollout Plan. And what has happened since about somewhere in 2005 to 2017, Chick-fil-A has expanded leaps and bounds. And the site plan that you're looking at right now, with the exception of the proposed canopies that we're going to be talking about here in a minute, is your typical restaurant layout that you see for any number of restaurants. The kicker here with Chick-fil-A was that all of a sudden they're probably the most popular brand that's out there. And as you guys have seen, traffic gets picked up. There's certain times of the day where you're driving into this facility probably and you're seeing that you can't even get in, or it's just hard to maneuver around there. As well as at other places we've seen where the traffic has either spilled out onto the street or actually blocked other businesses from getting their traffic going into their parking lots. So Chick-fil-A came to us in early 2017 and they came up with this idea in their offices in Atlanta, and we've been pushing this through pretty much everywhere across America. We're on our 900th store here. So how this works is they install the face-to-face canopy, which is the larger canopy down at the bottom of the screen there. And the key there is they've equipped their team members with smart tablets. Smart tablets are Wi-Fi based, and what this does is, as you have anywhere from 4 to 6 cars lined up, you're going to have 4 to 6 team members approach each vehicle independently, and they're going to take their food orders. And then as those cars leave that and keep circling around the building and get up to the pickup window, we have a larger canopy out there that's going to have 2 to 3 employees out there. And because the smart tablet features a way for you to pay for everything using your credit card, there's really no cash transactions that much more in America now. All these team members at the meal delivery canopy at the pickup window are just passing out orders. So this has helped improve traffic, and the main when they started this program, implementing this program, you had kids out there that were unprotected from the weather. You got rain, you got snow. Arizona, we see extreme heat of 116 degrees during the month of August. In your part of the country, you have snow and rain. So we equip these with heaters and fans depending on the area that you're in. And the goal here is to help the traffic move a lot faster through here. If you can go down to probably the elevation sheet, or if you can scroll down to probably the sheet that we have the renderings on, we can talk a little bit about the design for this. Probably next sheet down, I believe. You should have a sheet 4 or 5, maybe. There you go, colored renderings. So this look that you're seeing here is the face-to-face canopy. Once again, you can see that we've integrated using the trim and the hardy board that matches the building, and then the base of the columns are going to have a stone veneer matching the stone veneer of the building. The fascia of this structure is it's a very slimline design. We keep it about 1 foot thick, and it gets a powder coat paint finish that's a rubbed bronze look, which is going to match the mullions of the windows in the Chick-fil-A restaurant, as well as any of the trellis work they may have around the other side of the building. Canopies are about 9 feet 6 inches tall, so we try to keep them low profile. And again, the slimline design is intended to make it look more of in balance of an awning to the building. Our goal is to try to make this look like it was part of the original build out of this building rather than a piece that came in later. Lighting that is going to be used underneath here is a low-level LED light. It's recessed into the canopy, so it's not going to stick down like you see at a gas station service or have that brightness that you see at a fuel station, okay? And in some parts of the country, and this may be one of them because of your heat index in the summer, we'll install fans near the columns at the top. You really won't see too much of them to blow air on the workers as they're out there in the heat of the day. So the philosophy behind this is that if we can keep team members out there for a longer stretch, you know, a 2-hour phase during the times of the day when you have the most traffic and business, we push a lot more cars through. If you don't mind, could you please move to the next slide where we have the meal delivery canopy? Oh, I guess it's one more slide up.
It's on slide 11.
Page 15, Anna Rosa.
Yeah, there you go. That's kind of a full on-shot view of what you would see with the meal delivery canopy. Again, you can see that we use the hardy board trim and hardy board itself, and then we use the stone veneer that's adjacent to the building. The intent again here is to make this look like it's part of an awning rather than a big structure. We've got the bronze powder coat paint finish on there. The decking underneath the canopy is going to be a white powder coat finish. It's not a bright white, it's kind of more of a white that matches the trim that you're seeing on the building right now. As you see it right now, you're really not gonna see very much of it here. So, you know, we've seen what this has done at other locations. Some of the stores that we were talking about that had issues with traffic, you know, they were averaging about 15 cars every 15 minutes to get through the drive-through, and now with this new system where they're using the Wi-Fi tablets and these canopies in tandem, installed in tandem units, they're averaging probably about anywhere from 37 to 47 cars every 15 minutes. So you can see that with those kind of numbers, they are drastically reducing the traffic congestion that are in some of these malls. As far as we know, there have been no complaints by any of the tenants or any other people in the community when it comes to traffic issues or anything like that. But we do hear that this is a store that is very busy, and it is high on Chick-fil-A's radar to try to remediate the traffic issue that's going on there during certain times of the day. So with that, I'll open up for any questions anyone may have.
Great, thank you. Sarah, do you have any questions?
I just had some feedback. just to point out, I don't know how familiar other members are of the North Point Village, but I will say that the treatment of the columns that they're looking at really speaks to the treatment of the columns of the existing the strip mall. So when you're walking along there, that same sort of brick treatment, and actually there's a horizontal thin articulation on the elevation of the strip mall that starts to get echoed here with the thinness of their canopy. There's also, as part of this site, there is a gas station that has a canopy. So we're already seeing a precedence on this overall site of a business having a canopy structure. Although I think this one is much better articulated and well scaled for its location. And then also, I think that it's going to be an enhancement. I've certainly seen that staffing done. The McDonald's down the street does that, but they don't have a canopy. And in inclement weather, extreme heat, I feel sorry for the employees who are out there. So I applaud the effort to take care of their employees in this thoughtful way. And I had no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Elena, you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Brian?
I do have a couple questions. I just want to make sure I understand at the second one, the meal delivery window. So you're adding those are new columns that are added there, and then it's kind of cantilevered over the drive aisle.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because I want to make sure that you guys have a comfortable feeling with that. These are structurally designed. The columns are usually about 8 inches by 8 inches square, and they're about 3/8 of an inch thick. There's a caisson footing or an offset footing, spread footing that we use underneath the ground. You won't see it because it'll be covered back up by the pavement that's there. And then these are structural reinforced beams that are pretty heavy duty, so this, when we submit the drawings, you'll get all the structural calculations as well as all the, views of detailing on how the steel is put together. Also, probably one thing we should go ahead and mention is water drainage off the top of these. You get a little bit of snow here and a lot of bit of rain, more than we do in Arizona. In this particular situation, we would probably just use scuppers off the end, and then the water falls onto the pavement below, and then it gets mitigated by the existing flow pattern that's already on site. So it's not like these canopies are going to bring more water to the area, or we're going to shut it off to some other part of the property that doesn't belong to Chick-fil-A. It all gets reintroduced back into the culvert system that's there and maintains the same amount of water that would normally fall on the site.
So at the order, when you order, which way is it going to be sloped? Do you think?
Well, we don't slope the roof. We slope it above so that you don't see what's going on. There's going to be an internal gutter in there that you really are not going to notice.
I guess that's what I'm wondering when I'm looking at the image of where you order. I guess I'm trying to figure out, because it is, the street's up higher, the sidewalk's up higher, and this render view, it looks like just kind of a flat, totally clean roof facade, basically. So what is that material like? I'm trying to figure out, are we going to see seams in it? Like, what are we actually going to see?
It's the decking that you would probably see at it's a heavy duty decking that's about 18 gauge. It's not the floppy kind of steel. It's all steel, and it'll be a powder coat paint finish, and it interlocks. So yeah, you'll see a little bit of a seam there. Yeah, okay. Otherwise you can't do it with a flat piece of sheet metal or a thicker metal, just because it would do oil canning and so forth.
And that will be that same rubbed bronze finish that you've proposed for the columns and everything like that?
The bronze finish is on the facing and the fascia, and then the white decking is the piece that we just talked about.
So we'll see. So when we're looking at this view from above, we'll see white. Like on the top side of it. I'm talking about on the top.
Yeah, you will. If you're driving underneath the canopy, you're going to see the white decking. Okay.
No, we're talking about the top of it.
I'm talking about
on the top of it. No, it's not going to be white. Well, it'll be white, but it'll be powder coated. You're really not going to see that white.
So staff, can you go to slide 16? Because Brian, I had the same question. I just want to make sure that the applicant understands our question. So
Yeah.
the color, so the pathway for the main walking path that, hundreds
Gotcha.
of people traverse, what are we looking at on the top of this roof when we look at
You'll
it?
just see white.
Is there any way to powder coat that?
Yeah, I can. It does come powder coated. It's the panels are fully white powder coated, so you're not going to. So
Sorry,
what I'm getting
that
at is you're not
powder
going to
coat
see
with the
rust
bronze.
or anything.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. With the bronze, is there any way to? Because the rendering makes it look like it's rubbed bronze.
Oh, okay. I see where you're coming from with that. No, it is a white deck, but we can propose a bronze and see what we can come up with there.
Yeah, because I agree with Sarah completely. I very much appreciate what you all did with the columns to tie in the kind of the design of the restaurant to make it fit in. I very much like that. I am a little concerned about like this view that we're looking at and what we're going to see on this canopy. I think the other one's shielded a little bit better, but this one's kind of like wide out in the open. So that's kind of just where the basis of my questions are coming from.
Okay.
And I think it would help it if this just had, I don't know, if I just understood a little bit better what we're actually seeing in terms of like the articulation there, like seams, just in not like just 55 feet flat metal is what I'm just trying to understand what we're actually going to see there.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see a little bit of seam work. It's not going to be, I don't want to say that it's not going to be noticeable, but it's not going to be big gaps, like you see in the hardy board or anything. It all kind of fits together, and that's really what you're going to see. If anything, the top of the roof is going to resemble a little bit more of a standing seam metal roof, that kind of a look to it, because it actually snaps together like that. So the trick is, can I get our manufacturer to powder coat the top side, the bronze color, and then still do the white underneath so that we can have the reflectiveness of the white to help the team members be seen and so forth. Also, another thing that probably wasn't mentioned that we show on our drawings is there are what we call team member walkways. Team members are outfitted with orange jackets, and there is a specific lane demarcated on the ground so that's their safety zone when there are several vehicles underneath there. So we've done this at, like I said, over 900 stores, and we haven't heard of anybody getting hurt.
Brian, any other questions?
That's it for me. Thank you.
John, any questions?
I have only one question, and that is, as you're leaving from getting your food picked up, how are you going to, and this is a little bit of a joke, how are you going to mitigate people that have to stop for the people coming down the parking lot from the giant food store to get out of the parking lot? So, or the liquor store in my case.
Well, I'd kind of have to look at the site plan to see what you're talking about to help you answer that question.
It's right turn only, John.
Yeah, right turn only.
Yeah, they only allow right turns out of there. Just saying.
Right.
It's my husband's favorite spot, so we've gone through there a few times.
You go through there a lot, okay.
A little, it's pretty much a quick U-turn to get out. Anything else, John? Beyond your humor.
No, I was looking at this the other day. I saw what the plan was, and I think that actually these canopies are going to integrate pretty well with the existing building. I'm pleased to see that. I was wondering how it's going to work with the windows on the food delivery side that are on the building, but I see it's just below those, so you're still going to get your light into the building and provide cover over the car. So works for me.
Okay. Bruce, any comments?
No, the only thing I was going to point out, and maybe gentlemen's in Arizona, that we're concerned about the roof in part because this is downsloped from the walkway that you see. And so the roof is more visible than you would normally experience if everything was level. So in this case, having the color, and I guess Michael will make a suggestion in the motion about the roof color. is more significant here than it might be in another location. I think we're just not being arbitrary about the color of the roof. But that's it. So I just wanted to point out this is a down slope, and that people are walking, they will definitely see the roof there.
Okay, yeah, we can work with our fabricator and see if there's some way we can come up with making that a more unified color so that it matches with what's going on out there. I'd almost hate to ask you to approve something that would be all that bronzed anodized look, because now all of a sudden it's going to really pop out there, right? So maybe we pick a color from the building that's kind of neutral and figure out a way to integrate it into the top of that so that it hides what you're afraid of seeing.
In fact, I think that's a better solution personally, matching like the color of the siding or something like that, because if you do a dark bronze, it's going to absorb heat and the people underneath are going to feel that in the summer.
Yeah.
So
because it's metal, it's going to become a radiator.
hey, Michael. So at that shopping center, they do have these canvas awnings that are kind of a dark color, and that might be a good point to go back on what Elena's talking about of an existing site color to match to, just as a suggestion.
Yeah, I think maybe the kind of tan color of the building, because of how it's going to be red from the street, that would match the siding on the columns. You know, maybe that kind of lighter tan color could look appropriate, because if it's going to have some sort of corrugation or standing seam like qualities, it's going to be pretty similar to kind of how the siding is red in the images. And if it's already a powder coated product, I feel like they should be able to, powder coat one side with one color and then the other side.
I'd also point out that what this rendering is missing is that on this building existing, and I'm looking at Google Earth, I don't have this memorized, even though my husband goes there a lot, is that they have one of those canvas awnings currently on their building. So
Yeah,
if that was a color they were going to pick, they already have it.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I actually was going to ask about that, because I feel like I don't think that got approval. I actually was going to recommend that they replace that with a similar awning to these that they're putting on the site. But I was going to ask staff that question if they had an approval for that awning, because I think they kind of added it they added kind of a side takeout window, which I also don't see on a lot of these drawings. So I don't even know if that was approved either. So
okay, actually, I can probably speak to that. What we're seeing across the country, because this has taken so long, is that this has been a 5-year program in our office, okay? And we've handled every one of these stores pretty much across America. So as these operators have seen their buddy operators get a structure like this, this is all about taking care of their employees. So they've gone out on their own, and they will get with a canopy company that you have locally, and they'll just put up a temporary awning is what they do. And then once we come in with this new structure, that all goes away. And some of these operators don't understand that there's a method that you need to do, like go down and talk to somebody at the city and tell them that this is what you'd like to do until these kind of canopies come in to play. And so that might be part of what you're seeing.
yeah, staff, if you go to slide 23 and zoom in on the middle picture on the left-hand side, the middle left, or not, yeah, middle row, far left picture. Go back to your left and zoom in on there.
Okay, I see that.
So that awning's been added. I don't know if it has approval or not. I'm just saying. I think integrating this awning you've designed is much more appealing to the structure, and it works much better, right? In my opinion, on how it works. It's currently very similar to what they have over the existing drive-through pickup window right now. That's kind of a cantilevered awning with a tension cable, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this awning is much less elegant. Let's say it that way. And so that would be my only comment. I know it probably doesn't have anything to do with you, but I'm going to just put it in the motion for staff to look into it, because I just don't think it's part of an approved modification to the property. So anyways, that's just more of my side note. Mike, do you have any comments for the applicant?
Just a confirmation, and I guess this is just making sure I'm reading the site plan correctly, that we're not making any changes to the traffic flow. We're not making any changes to the existing lanes. Everything's staying the same in terms of.
Yeah, everything is going to stay the same. The only addition is these canopies.
Okay, love it. Just knowing the topo there might have facilitated some other nonsense that I was sincerely hoping we were going to avoid. So nothing else from me, Michael.
Okay. Jim, any thoughts?
Yeah, looking at the picture that's up on the screen right now, knowing that we're going to be looking down on top of this thing from coming down Reston Parkway, the fascia on the canopy, why couldn't it be the same color as the fascia that's at the edge of the roof up at the top, and the color of the top of the roof be a very similar color to the shingles that are up on top of this roof? So that seems like it would complement and harmonize with what's already there, at least from what I'm seeing. Much better than a dark bronze or a white, you've done a nice job bringing the columns of the canopy into the harmony of the building, but the roof and the fascia, if the colors that are up there on that roof that's in this picture, if it could be closer to that, it seems like it would blend a lot better.
Well, the dark color of the fascia, the bronze anodized look, is there to make this appear as this is part of the original build out of the store where we have these trellises. Now, this store doesn't have the trellises, but it has those bronze anodized aluminum mullions, and that's what we look for. This is a look we're doing all across the U.S. I think if you go to a lighter color, you're going to lose a little bit of the punch that this gives, but we can certainly give that a shot and see how it looks and go from there.
The darker color, to me at least, on the fascia on the canopy just looks very heavy visually.
Yeah, we don't have a problem going to the white trim that you see on your hardy board for the fascia. That's not a problem for us.
It just seems like, since you're going to be looking down on this thing, like as everybody else has commented, to get it to blend even more with the existing building, just pick up on the colors that are already there, the roof color and the fascia color.
Yeah, I just from a discussion standpoint, I don't know if I agree, Jim. I think the dark bronze does kind of give it this. At the end of the day, it's a much nicer canopy than whatever other people put at gas stations and other things. I think it kind of gives it this slick appearance that kind of molds in well. That I'm just more worried about the roof color, but that's just once again my opinion on it. Any other comments, Jim?
No, that's it.
Does anyone, let's have a little bit of further discussion. So we've had some ideas thrown out there. Overall, I think we're all kind of for the design, but anybody have any other kind of ideas, final things that we could talk about before we make a motion for specifically, I would say maybe the roof color, and kind of a recommendation there to give the gentleman some direction?
I have a question about traffic, just to bring this up. The new canopy for the ordering line really focuses the traffic to the right-hand side of the two bays of parking, if you will. So it looks like the left-hand side could really be focused on, you have a huge amount of delivery traffic that goes there. You have a number of delivery cars And so it looks like that really separates the drive-in traffic from the delivery cars and puts them in that secondary space between the building and the drive-in line. So I think that's a good indication, at least from what I've seen, of the way traffic seems to flow right now with some confusion.
Yeah. The one thing I'm looking at, sorry, John, go ahead.
I was just saying that since we're not even looking at the site plan, I don't know if that makes sense, but you can look at the site plan on the right, and it seems to really refocus the drive-in traffic in a good way to get it separated from the other section of the parking lot that probably would have a lot of delivery cars parked there.
Yeah. The one thing that I pulled up quickly, just because I was there earlier today, ironically enough, and one thing that you can see from the street view is the existing menu board signs have a small canopy at the same 9 feet height that they're proposing for this, and the current top of those canopies is like even from the street view you can see it. It looks like the canopy itself is a dark bronze perimeter, and then it has kind of looks like almost like a light gray roof, from what I can tell from the street view. So it is going to be visible, and I think that this just kind of confirmed my thought. I think a color that mimics with the roof of the existing property, with like Jim is referencing, would work. I think what's tough is it's an asphalt shingle, so trying to get the right color on metal, it's probably not going to be easy. So I'm leaning more towards doing a color that, even if they want to keep it lighter in color and they want to be able to do just the trim color of the building, which is kind of more of a lighter cream color rather than a stark white, I think would even be an improvement over it being a stark white. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think they could, that way if you wanted to do the double-sided color, if the manufacturer said it had to be, if the manufacturer had to be one color, you could do the trim color. That way it's very, it's more of just an off-white.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. I would say let's see where it goes. But if we have our choice of stark white on, bright white on the bottom, I won't say stark white, bright white on the bottom, and would have to duplicate it on the top, then going to something like you're saying, a mellow white would be better.
Or the siding color, I think, would work if they could do two-sided, but that's just me. Does anybody want to make any further discussion? Any other comments? All right. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the application with the following amendment: that the top of the roof color be resubmitted with a color combination that is cohesive with the current coloring of the building. Sir, would it help you if I said if you guys can either do the trim color or the siding color that it's already approved? Does that kind of help you expedited, or that way you don't
help
get it back?
us.
Okay.
Yeah, and what we can do is when if you're allowing us to move forward and we get to the phase where we can actually submit for building permit or get the site plan approved, then we'll alter this elevation, these colored elevations, and get it to everyone's hands.
Okay. Yeah. So what I would say, okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the application with the following amendment: that the top roof color of the canopy be either to match the siding or to match the trim color on the existing building. The applicant will submit which one they're going to go with to staff for record keeping. So there's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being patient.
All right. Hey, thank you guys very much. On behalf of Chick-fil-A, we really appreciate you working with us.
Thank you. All right. Cam, take it away. I tried to get to you as fast as possible, man.
No worries. Let's make this 2 minutes. Let's see if I can. So we have two very small changes to the resolutions that you all reviewed. Resolution 8 and Resolution 10. The small changes are highlighted in yellow in the documents. So the first resolution is related to Resolution 8. We added the language to formalize the DRB's position that deferred decisions cannot be appealed. That was one of the things that came up at the last DRB meeting. And so we are putting that into the resolution. Only approvals or disapprovals can be appealed. And then the second part is the Resolution 10 related to affected parties. We just simply added the language to ensure complainants for design violations would be provided a copy of the application and the ability to request affected party status. That was one of the things that came up as we were going through this process, is that we really wanted to make sure that staff had the ability to do that and formalize that in the resolution. So I am looking for the DRB's approval to move forward with this for board review. The board is reviewing these changes at the February 23rd meeting, which is 2 days from today, for final review and approval and adoption to be then a permanent resolution for both the DRB Resolution 8 and 10. So any questions?
I'm not sure I understand this one that's highlighted right now.
Sure. So a part of our process, when we receive complaints from members about certain things, some of them are use and maintenance violations. So your standard, the shutters aren't painted correctly, the home's not being maintained, but other violations are related to design violations. So whether or not someone had the approval necessary to do the modification. And so when we get complaints and we process the application, what generally happens is that we would like to ensure that the person who filed the complaint has the ability to register as an affected party. And what happens now, technically, is that if they file the complaint, but they aren't someone who is a signatory on the application, they aren't going to be able to register as an affected party. So this formalizes the fact that they are the ones that brought the complaint to Reston Association, and Reston Association is giving them that opportunity through this resolution.
Makes sense. Anyone else have any other questions for Cam?
The only question about that, and I didn't want to do this, but we define an affected party as someone whose property was directly impacted. And this could be anybody. So I just point out that this is a little bit different. I mean, I understand what we're trying to do, but we tried to make affected party someone. I'm just pointing out someone that had a directly affected property.
Right.
Correct. So we did define materially impacted. However, this is just merely a request for registering as an affected party, not quote unquote being a requirement to be an affected party. So the DRB still has the authority to determine whether or not someone is going to be an affected party or not.
Okay, so this is just a notice. They still have to qualify, and that's a good point. I appreciate that. You're pointing out that they still have to qualify as an affected party otherwise.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And you need a motion, yeah?
Yes, I do.
Anyone want to make a motion to
move forward for board consideration?
So moved.
So moved, great.
The motion, second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Good work, Cam and staff, on doing this. It seems like it's been a long road and it's finally getting close to the finish line. Good luck in 2 days when you have to present it, I guess. I'm assuming you're presenting it. Yeah, Cam?
I am, yes.
And the only follow-up that I had before we adjourn, we would need to, if anyone's interested in going to the Stonegate kind of as a walkthrough, just reach out to LaShonda. Maybe we can figure out a time. What, Cam, remind me, if we have too many people go, doesn't it designate something, or I forget what the rule is.
So if you have, I believe at the time, so Thursday, you will be getting a new DRB member, a new design professional to replace Dan Galindo.
Okay.
So I believe 5 would be quorum.
So as long as we had less than 5, so 4 or less.
Correct.
Okay. Reach out if you guys are interested. I'm interested just because, you know, when I hear 175 trees, it kind of perks my ears a little bit, which I don't think was exactly clear on the presentation tonight. So I think it'd be great to see it. And so, Cam, if we have higher than 4 people interested, what happens? Do we need to do a formal work session? I feel like an application like that could use a little bit of a work session, since we're not in person in meetings, it makes it difficult. What happens then?
Yes, it would be a special meeting, a special work session, and we would have to do notice and notification to the membership.
Okay. All right. Well, just feel free. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
So far ahead, Michael Bianchino, you raised your hand as being interested too, okay? I'll send out a formal email just to see if anybody else would like to join. And you said next month, right?
Yeah, sometime next month, whatever, you know, can work for their team and our team. I mean, I just want to help them moving forward.
That was going to be my question, was timing. I didn't know if I didn't hear a date, but next month would be fine. That's plenty of lead time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a process. If I had a hunch of what they're going to be doing. So yeah. All right.
A phases thing, probably.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything else?
2 quick small things. I'm sorry to do this, but Bruce, if you've been getting our emails, please make sure to submit your application. And then Michael Bianchino, we will be following up with you about your conflict of interest. We still need that. I know, sorry, but we'll make sure to send it to you. Thank you.
You know, if we met in person, you could corner all of these people and make them do what you want. Just
that is your decision. We serve at the pleasure.
I am virtually cornered.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I always make a proponent of this at some point, but you might as well throw it out there. I think full board should go back in person. Specifically for some of the bigger applications that we had tonight, I think it would have been helpful to be able to have certain things in front of us and looking at them. That's just my opinion. I think we can table it for another night just because it's been a long night, and maybe we can talk about it via email or something. I still think it would be a good option for full board. So just my 2 cents. Anyone want to make a motion?
I move we end the meeting.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Did I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I know these meetings are a little longer. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, staff, as well, as always.
Mike,
Thank
I'm
you.
sending you the email.
Send it.
Yeah.
Send it.
Bye.
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 Bye.